So now, guys, I'm super excited to present our expert for today's session, who is none other than our friend and innovation catalyst, Utssav Gupta. Give him a big round of applause virtually. So Utssav is a strategic architect by profession, and if you could recall that Utssav has always talked about many a time with us that innovation is the need of the hour to create disruption in whatever we are doing. But today, unfortunately, this pandemic has caused a disruption, and Utssav will guide us today how to get prepared in this situation and how to leverage it for our personal life and our professional life. So this is what Utssav is going to talk about in the today's session. The session name is Future Casting 2.0. So now, without taking much time, let me give Utssav Gupta to you. So Utssav, over to you, man.
Thanks, Pankaj. Thanks for the wonderful introduction, and welcome everybody. You have taken so much time to come out over here in the morning, and I hope everybody is well and healthy, and the families are safe. So, micro learning sessions was started with this one being the first one to see how we can take forward the value that we can create in each other in this lockdown time. And what better than addressing our first fear about what's going to happen after the pandemic is over, after how the pandemic unfolds and how the business is going to come back. There's a lot of fear and there's a lot of panic around that. And so today we're going to talk about the future casting beyond COVID-19 pandemic and how we can learn from what is going to happen now and in the future. So you've seen how it has been unfolding in the major economic centers of the world. China taking the worst hit, Italy following by that. And fortunately, because of the proactive steps of our government, India is actually much lower in number. We only have 1,200 cases reported this morning. Whereas if you see the world, we are over 2.5 lakh cases coming up. And this has taken some aggressive steps by the government. This has been because there have been isolations and lockdown. So in this current 21 days lockdown, the economy has taken a hit. The business have stalled. There's a lockdown in India and abroad. The supply chains have got disrupted. And a lot of threat to life is happening, which is causing fear and panic all around. And one wonders that how can we cope up with this situation, what to do and how to come back after this thing is over. So there's a lot of anxiety level, I feel, generally in the public. Everybody is speculating about how we can get around it and what is the way forward. So no doubt, guys, this is a very testing time. From the financial standpoint, it has taken the worst hit in the stocks. Nosediving, if you can see the forecast from BBC, in the past month itself, within the March, it has nosedived to several points. And those who have invested in MF, when they track their wealth, I'm sure they will be able to see what's going on. Of course, this is temporary, but yeah, it just creates a sense of awareness of what's happening within the financial market. So this event by economists is one of those events called as the Black Swan event. Now, so who wants to know what's a Black Swan event? Tell me on the chat box. Who wants to know what's the Black Swan event and how can we go around it? Great. So I'm getting some replies. That means people are seeing and they are able to hear me well. So Black Swan event is defined as a disproportionate role of a high profile, hard to predict, and a rare event beyond the realms of normal expectation in history, science, finance, and technology. So what happened was there was a historian and he said that, look, no matter how many times you study the white swan, but only when you find a black swan will you be able to get to know what's going to happen. So that's how this knowing coined. And what we're talking about is an extremely disproportional sized event that has the consequences beyond the normal expectations. And coronavirus is certainly one of those. So when the black swan event happens, and it happens in a very, very low frequency, it's very unlikely, once in several years it happens. But when it happens, the severity and the intensity of the impact it creates is phenomenal. So you can see the graph, how steep the impact is when the black swan event happens. So the big question today is that what can we do in these times when such a black swan event is happening? And the coronavirus is certainly a very, very big black swan event. We're going to see more how that has unfolded over the time. So as an immediate solution, we gotta take care of our brand. We're gonna be true to our brand and a purpose. So communication is very, very important in this time. Communicate with your customers, communicate with your team, develop new ways to work with them. So work from home. A lot of people have taken work from home. A lot of people are serving their clients through Zoom meetings as such. So great initiative, guys, if you're doing that. Be loyal to the best of your customers. Take care of them. Take care of your loyal customers. Very, very important to support each other. Look at their pains. This is a perfect time to take a feedback. This is a perfect time to get in touch with them to see what they're really feeling, and so you can have a great information to what to do next if you engage with a customer right now. Review your digital properties, guys. Nothing can be more saving than reviewing your digital properties, doing what you have, how you can do your meetings offline. Simple things like WhatsApp, video chatting through WhatsApp and all can make a great difference with your customer and your teams. And spend wisely. Every cash matters. So be very, very judicial of where to spend, what you can cut, what you can support, but do a fair share. Don't make a misbalance between not paying somebody and just investing in something else. Do a fair share. So this is all part of a reactive measure of how you can be true to your brand and purpose. But the bigger question is that what can be done with our organizations to make it future ready against such pandemics or more so. So that's the biggest question that we have and everybody has, I guess. I believe, what can be done for the future? So who wants to know that? Who wants to see what can be done for the future? Great. So I can still see people are, I can people are there with me. That's perfect, guys. So I want to share a perspective here and be very careful on what I'm going to say over here. This is the graph I found out for the financial economy of the last 100 years. And pandemics such as Corona happened once, but look at the graph, what it is showing. It's full of peaks and highs. It's full of peaks and lows. And you see the red marks, they are peaks and there's lows, and there's something or the other happening every time that there's a change in the world system. There's something, the events keep on happening. And so the whole impact on the financial circle is pretty much there in the last 100 years. So what does it tell us? So my point I'm trying to bring over here is that black swan events like this coronavirus thing are not the alone events. There are other events that have happened, and there are other events that will happen in the future as well. So at the global level, we saw SARC, we saw Ebola, we saw 2008 economic crash, we saw 2000 WTC crash. At a country level, we saw GST implementation and demonetization impacting a lot of businesses. And then, of course, there are personal circumstances that happens in everybody's life, which turn out to be the black swan events, and they're disrupted from the regular flow. Business gets impacted. So it's not just the coronavirus that creates a disruption. It's also these events in your daily life that creates disruption. And more importantly, when the market changes, market competition happens, their trend changes, the disruption also happens due to that. So being future ready is not just about corona. It is about a habit of understanding these ups and downs, and being and developing a mechanism to face these ups and downs, including your market competition, including the changing trends that we face in our daily lives. So the big question now today is, how do we do that? Once we understand that this phenomena, Corona, is not the only phenomena. The next question comes is that how can we prepare ourselves for the other kind of black swan events that usually happen and we don't know. We usually are pretty, there is silence in the whole atmosphere when these events happen, but they happen and they happen for real. So having said that, if there's one word that I want to leave you today is about resilience. Building resilience is the next game that will help us fight these black swan events. So what is resilience? It's a capacity to recover quickly from difficulties and toughness. Also, it is the ability to sustain and spring back into shape. Yeah. So I'll repeat again. It's a capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. So resilience is a backup plan. It's a backup plan that we build in our businesses, in our lives, that helps us spring back, that helps us come back. So for instance, if somebody has data online, for instance, we can very well have data offline. We can very well have data well into our files and stuff like that. But if you have a data online, and if such a pandemic would happen, is it not part of your resilience that you planned for it and now you're able to work from home because you have access to your data? So very small example. So these kind of steps helps you to create resilience within your business and within your lives. And without resilience, we are always the hanging balance between always being reactive and being proactive. So being reactive is hysteria, the fear, the unpreparedness that we have, that the world is currently going on. Whereas if you are resilient, or if you have resilience built into your businesses, you are more proactive. There's a backup plan. You will not only survive, but you will also thrive. In 2008 crash, where the businesses were going down in the US and other parts of country, some businesses also took off very, very well. What's the secret behind that? They had resilience. They had the opportunity. They capitalized on the opportunity because they had resilience. They could stay. They could be on their ground and they could be on their feet, and that helped them spring back and gain new heights. So how do we build the resilience? Well, you got to look at the unknown. So there are three main steps that I figured out that has helped build resilience. So one is understanding the silent risks. So what are the risks that you have? What are the risks you incur of? I'm not talking about the ones that are visible. I'm talking about the ones that are silent. Coronavirus was a sitting risk that one day the country will shut down and what will happen to us. So did we plan for that risk? Did we even think about that risk? Evolving trends. So what are those trends that are going to come up as a part of this future forecasting? Will we be able to work from home, for instance? Is that an evolving trend come from that is going to emerge? Will we consult people from home? Will we consult people on go? Will we what will we do? What are the evolving trends that are going to come up in the future? And emerging unsaid needs. Whereas the emphasis on the word is unsaid, because a lot of people are suffering, and a lot of clients are suffering, but they're not telling. So you got to read between the lines. You got to read between what they are not saying and figure out what needs to come after that. So these are the three markers that will help you plan your steps towards resilience. And what you need to do thereafter is to create adaptability, change the business tactics as to meet the needs. So for example, if let's say if there is a work to be done right now, if the client calls you for all the people who are in service industry, well, you will just pick up your iPad, you will just pick up full out the data and consult him on the phone. So that's a change in business tactic, where you always used to consult them over in an office hours or something. You will now you'll be able to consult them on the go, and that's adaptability. There are also other examples of business direction. For example, a lot of people are IIT is creating sanitizers. It was not their business to do sanitizer, but they had the capability and they saw the opportunity and they started changing their business tactics. Though it was not a monetization purposes, it was more for social purposes. But nevertheless, the point is that we need to be adaptable. We need to imbibe adaptability within our businesses. Future casting. It's very, very important. We always are looking into the current scenario, but what about the future? What about, have we invested in the research? Have we invested in creating the backups? Have we invested in the future trends? Have we invested in what are knowing the future trends? Have we invested in what is going to be the next frontier for your profession? So have you future casted and have you invested in the research that is going to take your business to the next level? That is very, very important when the times are normal. Cultural setting, building the flexibility and compassion. So if, let's say, as an entrepreneur, you're working from home, but your team isn't used to it, what are you going to do? Your team is not motivated for it. What are you going to do? So setting up the culture, a client-centric culture, and bringing flexibility within the team with compassion creates resilience. It creates a fallback mechanism so that you're able to uh, see and cope up with it. And lastly, and most importantly, pooling up the systems and tech tools as a resource. So strengthening your backbone. So if you have this system in place, then the system works for itself. If you invest in technology, the technology reaches the payment. Anybody who has been working from home now and has invested in technology would be able to relate to this. How much it is important for building the resilience within the organization. So it turns out it's not that hard actually, if we really think about it. If I were to show you this picture just 1 month ago and suggest that let's do school education from home, let's do modules for your children over your display, from so that the teachers are there on the display and people can, students can learn. What would you have said? What would everybody have said? Well, it's a future. It's not really required, right? And yet, this is exactly what is happening currently in China. This picture is from March 2nd, 2020. And this article says 3 ways corona pandemic could reshape the education. So the technology was always there, and we never saw it this way. So what is missing? What is really we're trying to come up over here? It's the will, guys. It's about looking at the beyond. It's about thinking beyond the conventional. I'll tell you one more example. Telehealth. The notion of, we're going to have doctors on the other side of the phone. They're going to ask us how you're feeling. They're going to ask us the symptoms, and they're going to prescribe whatever they can prescribe on over the telehealth system. Something I have personally been working for about the past 4 years, and I'm sure all the doctors on the house will be able to relate to it. But it has never kicked off that much it has kicked off in this pandemic zone. This is my picture. Just last week, I consulted for my eyes with the doctor by sending him a picture and taking a telemedicine. So that was technology was always there. We always have our phones. We have the cameras are there, and yet we never exercise this option. So if we look beyond what is there in front of us, the ways are already there, and we just have to innovate around that. One of the great example of that is what we currently are having right now, the Go micro learning sessions. So it was the intent of the team. It started with Chandan's idea of why lose the momentum? Why not we can create value through Zoom meetings and other kind of webinars instead of really conducting a formal Go session. And Akshay Bhai and everybody endorsed. And this is a picture from yesterday. We were trying to do a mock run. And look, now today we have we have 68 people joined this Zoom. Great, guys. I mean, I really appreciate you coming out and taking your time out. But this session itself shows a possibility of what you can do as a future, how you can change the future and how you can think different in order to create resilience and still go on. But there's a big question about what happens if you are part of a supply chain, if you're part of a dependent chain where you have dependency on people above and people below. And for example, if you have shipments coming from China, what do you do? Or if you have customers who are based outside, what do you do then in lockdown happening situation over here? So I'm not expert in a chain management system, but I googled some articles yesterday, and I found out that most of the people who have into supply chain management are only looking at two things today to be able to prepare for the future. One is the risks that we've already talked about. So you need to look at the risk on the sustainability and on the human rights level. So, for example, if you have supply chains coming from, let's say, Kerala, which was blocked in the first day itself. So there is some risk associated with Kerala, because we saw how the pandemic was creating. Just the Nipah virus also got attached to Kerala, and so there's the risk, and the plan accordingly will change once you start assessing your own portfolio in terms of where the sustainability lies and how do you manage your risk to get over this thing. And the whole intent is to innovate the process and to build a resilient ecosystem. As a supply chain, you need to have a resilience built into the ecosystem itself. So the four things that people are saying, that the CSRs are saying, is to understand your potential partners about their resilience infrastructure, how they can support you in the times, and how you can support your further upward sides, for when such a time comes. uh, do your suppliers due diligence. That's the only way you can know. Don't just go on prices like how we usually do. Do a proper due diligence to understand what is the value that he is associating with you. What is the brand that he has as a brand value that he has, to bring that resilience into the attitude of the entire team. And plan a budget accordingly. Plan a budget for the supplier resilience and plan a budget for the impact resilience. So these are the nuggets that I found from the website, and I think they are all pointing towards the fact that you need to understand the risks, and you need to innovate the process to build a resilient supply chain system to be able to sustain through this time. And as we know about the jobs to be done theory, we have Akshar has taken that up during the Get Over book session. We always focus towards the main job of the product, and we look at how we can develop the product at the best. But what I have come to understand recently is, with all my agricultural experience, is also that resilience and other kind of the sustenance is usually lying on the related job, which is on the right side, which we usually neglect, which is normally on the hind side because it is silent. And therefore, the framework that we use is the blue grid map, specifically talks about the risks and the technology behind any kind of a venture, any kind of a model that is coming up, from both the perspectives, from the main job and from the rated job. And that is what has built resilience into my projects, which I design, through resilience for, again, the other many kinds of black swan events they have gone through, and they have been resilient in those. So as an opportunity towards of this corona has brought out those things which otherwise in a normal life we do not get to see, we do not get to experience. And therefore, like Steve Jobs said, you can only connect the dots when you're looking backwards. Well, yeah, here's your moment. You can look backwards and you can see what's going on, and you can assess. Now you'll be more informed after corona, you'll be more uh, equipped after corona lockdown gets off, and innovate your processes, innovate your supply chain into a resilient, uh, into a resilient manner, and get prepared for the next black swan event. So this is my strong statement. COVID-19 will fuel the next wave of the businesses and innovation. So do you want to be the next generation business? So that's a question, guys. How many of you want to be the next generation business after Corona's pandemic is over? Great, great. I'm seeing a lot of replies here. So yeah, towards a closing remark, I just want to leave one more nugget with you. And this is somewhere my spiritual side is also coming out for all the life coaches here, on the session. So there is a law of universe, the law of rhythm, that says what has to come up will always also go down. So there are good sides and the bad sides, and I've explained that in my book. But just for the webinar, look at the curve on the left side. It's a typical sine wave curve, and see what you observe on the curve on the right side. Yeah, full of ups and downs. Some are up, some ups are low, some ups are down, lesser, and some are peaks, some are not so peak. So what does it really tell? It's a law of universe. It's what the universe, how it functions. It's how the nature functions. There will be ups and there will be downs, and it's in the nature that such events happen in our lives, whether on a global scale or at at a personal scales. It is in the nature that these things happen, and nature, like how it has given us immunity to our bodies, and so is the resilience for business and organizations. So if one was to see what resilience does, again, this is in my book, how we can use this phenomena and create an upward trajectory of growth. But where resilience truly plays its part is during the down curve. Resilience supports sustaining through this phase. So if Corona was what's going on and resilience would have been the case, then resilience would have supported, it will support us in the future as well whenever there's a pandemic of such nature. So that is my closing remark, and I encourage everybody to look at the situation as a learning, and to facilitate innovation in your businesses to create resilience. And for that, I'm offering today my e-version of the book, which was released in January. A lot of people have already got asked for it, and I've sent it the couriers. But for those who want to still read and they don't have it, so the e-version is available today for all the participants. You just have to let me know. I'll just float a form after this webinar, and I'm going to send you all the e-version that you can take your time in this lockdown and read it. And as additionally, I'm also trying to work out some discounts from the publisher for my next version, which covers all these topics, which I was hoping to get released in March, but we are surely trying to get it in April. So everybody who's interested, they will be able to obtain that once it's out on a discounted price. But the guys, the whole point is that take this time out and build resilience as much as you can in your businesses. Take this time out to figure out what can be done, and understand what your client wants, and where you can actually innovate yourself into for the next phase. Thanks, guys. Over to you, Chandan.
Yeah, thank you so much, Utssav, for such an enlightening session on resilience and sharing so much about how we can, utilize and turn the tide in this particular pandemic scenario. So, guys, keep sharing your feedback in the chat box session, so that Utssav gets he feels that what you are feeling.